Hey guys, in this video we're comparing the highest clocked Pentium 4 running at 3.8 GHz, and it goes up against the Celeron based on the core architecture, the Celeron 420, which runs at only 1.6 GHz. The Pentium 4 670 runs at 3.8 GHz with an 800 MHz frontside bus. It is based on the net burst architecture, has 2 MB of level 2 cache, a TDP of 115 watts. The processor does have hyper-threading, and we will have benchmarks with hyper-threading on and off, and it cost $851 when it launched. The Celeron 420 runs at 1.6 GHz, also a 800 MHz frontside bus, is based on the core architecture, has 512 kilobytes of level 2 cache, only a TDP of 35 watts, there is no hyper-threading, and the processor when it launched cost only $39. And here we have a look at the test system that we're going to use in this video. Compared to the previous video, I made quite a few changes. I was benchmarking 3 boards in total, 2 boards with DDR2 and 1 with DDR3. And for the Pentium 4 with 800 MHz FSB, the DDR2 boards consistently outperformed the DDR3 motherboard, and that has to do with the faster memory timings. So the motherboard we're using is from Gigabyte. It is the GA-P35DS3L. For cooling, we continue to use the Cooler Master Hyper TX3 Evo. I found a nice memory kit from Kingston. We have 4 GB of RAM. They can do 1066 MHz with 555 15 timings, but need a little bit of extra voltage to be stable. And for sound, we're using a Sound Blaster X-Fi Titanium. I use the optical output for easy capturing. And I got quite a few comments about using a faster video card, so I had a go at using a Radeon 7770. This one is from Asus. It has 1 GB of VRAM, and we will come back to that card later. I've got a few things to talk about when we look at gameplay footage. So let's have a look at some benchmark results. First up, 3D Mark. We have the green and blue bars for the Pentium 4. The blue bar has hyper-threading turned on, the green bar has hyper-threading turned off, and the yellow bar is the Celeron 420. And straight away we can see the Pentium 4 is faster than the Celeron 420. Moving on to Far Cry with ultra details, here we can see the same picture. Hyper-threading helps the Pentium 4 a little bit to get a nice boost in performance, but the Celeron is behind. Doom 3 is a game that does not like the Celeron. We're only getting 35 FPS, which is really low. The Pentium 4 does a lot better, especially with hyper-threading turned on. In Half-Life 2 Lost Coast with maximum details, we can see the same thing. The Pentium 4, once again in the lead. Hyper-threading gives it a nice little performance boost, and the Celeron unfortunately is not able to compete. And here we have Fear with maximum details. Once again, we can see the Pentium 4 outperforming the Celeron. Hyper-threading has very little impact in this game. But does it run Crysis? Well, it does, but not very well. And we can see even with this fairly powerful video card, we can see a drop in performance going from the 800 by 600 resolution to full HD. And once again, we can see the Celeron being behind the Pentium 4. And hyper-threading does have a little bit of an impact, around 10% or so on the Pentium 4. Now we're going to have a quick look at some games, and this is where I ran into quite a few issues. In the benchmarks everything was working fine, but when I tried out a few games, especially games with OpenGL, I actually had a lot of issues. Return to Castle Wolfenstein ran extremely slow, even under 60 FPS, which is very unusual. It's an old game, it should run at multiple hundreds of FPS. And Medal of Honor Pacific Assault, for example, was crashing when trying to launch it. DirectX games ran a lot better, and with the latest driver, MSI Afterburner is showing all the statistics on the screen, which was very nice to see. In many games, the Celeron processor was so slow that the Radeon didn't even raise the clock speeds. It remained at the lowest setting, and it was just waiting for the processor to be a little bit faster. Another issue I had with MSI Afterburner was with the Celeron, it wouldn't show any temperatures or CPU load information, and it turns out this is just a limitation of the Celeron. As soon as I swapped out a Core 2 Duo, I used an E8600, it showed all the statistics just fine.
Ăștia au tot felul de gemini jos în beci. Ei produc ca pe niște mașini.
So let's summarize this video. Going into the project and never having used the Celeron 420 before, I did think it would perform quite well and close to the Pentium 4, but we found that the Pentium 4 is actually the much stronger processor, especially in games like Doom 3 we could see a massive difference. But we have to consider the low price of only $39 at launch and also the 35 watt TDP, which means the system will consume far less power, run quieter, and you can use a simple and cheaper cooler. Having said that, the Celeron 420 launched in 2007, so that puts it right at the time of late Windows XP and early Windows Vista games, and this processor would have clearly struggled with modern games at the time. And for us who are building a Socket 775 retro gaming PC, well, all the processors are really cheap, so there's really no particular reason to get such a Celeron. It is true that some games do run better on a single core processor, but as far as I know, you can take a dual core processor, disable one of the cores in the BIOS, or if that isn't supported, simply set the CPU affinity through Device Manager or a batch file. I do want to check out some of the faster Celeron processors in a future video to see how they compare, especially something like a Celeron E3500, which has 2 cores, 1 MB of level 2 cache, and a clock speed of 2.7 GHz. But looking at prices on AliExpress, a fast 8400, for example, costs only $5. So let me know what you think. Does this Celeron or Celerons in general have a place in retro gaming? Or should you just skip them and get a Pentium or something even better? Also, which graphics card should I go for with the test bench? And at what point do drivers show all the statistics in MSI Afterburner? And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you found it interesting. As always, if you want to see more content like this one, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment down below, hit that like button and share the video with your friends. And that's really it. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you soon with another one.